Rebecca Vaughn with United Way Simcoe Muskoka. I'm here with Kelsey Nichols. We are so happy to have you here. We are welcoming you to our session, and we want to share that through consultation of our current collaborators and actually our sector at large, we heard that we need to be very intentional in how we move forward. And so that is why we have come to making space for supportive activities like Grant Making 101 or Grant Writing Story 101, our upcoming session on social media strategies and storytelling, and then today's capacity building on meaningfully engaging individuals with lived and living experience. So I'd like to welcome Kelly Jones from the YWCA in Muskoka. She works as a facilitator with Circles Muskoka and Bridges Out of Poverty. We'll just start with Kelsey, and then we'll give the floor to Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. Another K name, Kelsey and Kelly. It's going to be a mouthful. We are going to start with a land acknowledgement today because historically, when communities, when individuals and folks come together to a particular area, it is important to acknowledge the inhabitants and the keepers of the land, and it was to show respect. And so United Way Simcoe Muskoka would like to showcase that same respect for the Indigenous land that we are situated on. This land has been in the care of the original stewards, which is the Indigenous people of the land. Simcoe County is situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe people include the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations, which is collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. As you know, United Way Simcoe Muskoka works with Simcoe County as well as the District of Muskoka. And so the district municipality Muskoka is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, which is the Chippewa and the Watauga Mohawks. United Way also works with Blue Mountain, and so Blue Mountain is located within the boundary of Treaty 18 region of 1818, and we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of the Nawash, which is now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, and they are the traditional keepers of the land. As settlers, we recognize the contributions and the historic importance of Indigenous peoples, and we must be clearly and overtly connected to make a collective commitment and impact, and promise to make sure that the challenge of truth and reconciliation is very much real in our communities as we are still in the truth phase. I am going to now pass it over to Kelly Jones.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. I'm going to share my screen now. Let's see if we can, yep, we're on this. And present, but we want to go to the first page. Yeah, which is fun. There we go. So thank you again for having me here today. So we're going to be just having a conversation about capacity building and engaging lived experience. I was pretty excited when Kelsey had mentioned that this was something that you wanted to invite along, because I'm very passionate about creating an equitable community. I only can speak from my cis white woman privilege, but in that I grew up in generational poverty. So my name is Kelly Jones, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm so proud to work for the YWCA Muskoka, and I am now the coordinator for Circles Muskoka for both sites, for North and South, and I'm also a graduate of the program. And it all started by joining the Getting Ahead program, which is another United Way funded program, we're so excited that you continue to invest in these programs. They're life-changing, and I only know this from my own experience. Now I get to watch other families as I help coach them through each and every one of their barriers. So oftentimes I will relay the experience that they've shared, that they've given me permission to use some of their stories to help others recognize that poverty is such a vast amount of lack of resources. It's not just go get a job. And so we just get to have that conversation today. So just for today, we're going to chat about who is lived experience, the 11 resources and why they matter. So knowing that each one of us has 11 resources, that alone will start shifting your mindset. Sorry, I'm sitting at my friend's house, and it's a very busy street, and so I'm trying to pay attention to you all. The scarcity mindset and how it affects our everyday, the hidden rules of instability and stability. And so when I say instability, I'm talking about poverty. It's shifting that language, which is also another barrier to an individual's success, is language. And what does it mean to engage with lived experience and relationship skill development, and why the Circles program works. So today, just for the guidelines, it's a non-judgment conversation. What you share is so valid, and what I receive from you is so valid for my growth, just as I hope the same for you all today. No answer or question is wrong. Your thoughts are based off your beliefs. It's how we grew up. It's the world we live in. And as we discuss truth and reconciliation and colonization and, being settlers, we need to open up our mindset and our shift to actually, be receiving of the knowledge that we're learning in order to heal and grow from. A growth mindset. So let's be intentional about learning something from one another today, and then be open to everything and attached to nothing. So that's something we use often at the YWCA, and it's just a conversation. Let's look at it as we're just having a coffee together. So who has lived experience? Well, those that have endured direct experience to the subject at hand. So in this case, we are speaking about poverty or daily instability. An individual who is directly facing poverty in daily life is the expert in that experience, and it is valid. It's funny because I grew up in generational poverty. So that means my dad was in poverty and his dad, and it goes 5 generations or more. So automatically, I'm born into a world of a box that I live in, just as you would be in your experiences. So the resources of the everyday that I've had to endure, trying to figure out what my next steps were, are based off of what I know and that lived experience that I have. So if someone was to talk to me about, trying to find financial resources that no one's ever heard of, I may have that experience because I've had to endure it. Therefore, I'm an expert in that box, if that makes sense. And I would never discredit anyone for sharing their experience in that. And I actually had, because this job has propelled me into a new sort of circumstance in my life. I'm not saying I'm rich by any means. I am starting to adapt to the middle class world where I have a savings account now. That's a huge deal. And I have life insurance. Look at me, big girl, And so I had a person come up to me and say, well, because you're living this way now, does your lived experience still exist? Yes, it will always be within me, because even though I have a savings account, I still live with that scarcity mindset because that's what I've had to endure my entire life. And so oftentimes we may not know we're doing that discrediting, but we do it because we're trying to figure it out. And it's a world of curiosity. So lived experience is so valid. Your experiences are valid to me because when I'm having a conversation with you, I am learning new things, and you have lived those things. Therefore, I will believe you because you've experienced them. So it's just another way of looking at lived experience. Now, I can only speak from my perception, just as you would yours. Please feel free to, so I can only see the slides. I can't see you all and your beautiful smiles or frowns, whatever's going on, but please type in the chat, and I have Kelsey to sort of share if there's any questions or if I'm going too fast because I get really excited. Generational poverty. So I just shared with you that that's 5 generations or more. So when you're born into generational poverty, it's an automatic assumption that you are born with no power, no voice, and no future story. It is what you know. That's it. There's circumstances that you are in because your parents only know that world. Oftentimes there's that underdog story where someone says, no, the world is bigger than what you're showing me. And in that creates a lot of tension because mom and dad may not know how to operate these brand new conversations about going to university and the financial aspect of that. And, having a higher education, what does that look like? Well, now you're going to have homework and I may not be able to help you with it because you want bigger and better things. And all I know is this. And so it's a very limiting experience. And when you're out and about in the world and operating in this middle class world, because that's sort of, we all fall under that, these are the set rules. it's really hard to navigate. And so you feel ashamed of where you come from because you don't have much, you don't match everyone else in the world. Therefore, you feel like you don't have power, you don't have a voice, and why bother? There's no point in trying for anything for a future story. Poverty, instability. So if we looked at poverty from a different perspective, instead of the just go get a job mentality, and understanding that it's the resources that an individual goes without. That is oftentimes when I'm facilitating Bridges Out of Poverty. AHA Process is the company that trains and facilitates bridges, and that is their definition of poverty. It is defined as an individual who's doing without resources. And so knowing that we have 11, if one or two of them start to fall, then, oh, I heard something. Kelsey, is everything okay on your end?
Yeah, everything's
Okay,
good. I think someone just had their mic on. All good.
okay. I thought it was going to be a question, so I paused. So these are our 11 resources. So automatic, we know that the world operates with money. And so, of course, people that have less than, if they do not have money to purchase goods and services, their financial resource is lacking. And clearly we understand right now with our housing crisis, if someone is paying more than 30% of their income on housing, they're already faltering into having to go to the food bank and having to tap into resources to pay their hydro bill. They're already struggling, and knowing that there's 11 of these resources, that is definitely going to make the rest of them start to fall into this bucket. So if you're not financially stable, emotionally, what does that do to you? You're angry at the world, you're frustrated, you feel defeated, you feel, shame. There's so many emotional ties to not feeling like you belong in the world. Your mental and cognitive, dealing with daily life. Who doesn't want to just lay in their duvet when life gets hard, right? A nice big cozy duvet and hide. Your language and your register. I mean, obviously, when you get aggressive, I've been known to drop a little swear word every now and then that pushes people away, because some people don't really want to engage in a conversation if you're using that type of language. Social capital and support systems. Oftentimes people in poverty hang out with people in poverty because we relate. And that doesn't really change your perception of the world if this is the world all you know. So if some of your friends are getting into trouble with the law all the time, you may end up being one of those friends that follows along, and therefore your problems are going to start being bigger. So social and capital, friends and family, oftentimes you've made choices that your friends and family don't approve of. So you may be pushed out of the family, or you may want to get away from the family because they're not making the choices that you approve of. Your physical health. Who doesn't wake up, like I'm in my 40s now, I wake up going, what is that pain, right? Oh, can I go to work today with that? If we're dealing with physical pain, knowing that an individual goes without food on a daily basis, that starts to create physical ailments that are sort of incurable, because we need nutrition to keep our body running. We need clean water and the ways to move properly in order to be a healthy human being. So if your physical resource starts lacking, you're definitely going to start noticing everything else will fall into place. Your spiritual does not have to mean go to church. That often people misconstrue that conception of church and religion is a spiritual aspect. There may be a lake somewhere with a tree beside it, and you sitting by that is a spiritual movement for you. It's believing that there's a divine moment happening right now, that this exists in my world. And if you keep continuing to go to that, you're now practicing a sort of spiritual belief. And if we don't have something to believe in, we tend to not want to achieve great things. Integrity and trust. Trusting people is a big deal. And so if I'm coming to you off the streets for even just going to a food bank and you have an agenda, I'm going to sense that. And so I really need to trust you here, because what I'm telling you is true. I want to believe the same from you. Motivation and persistence, the energy and drive to plan. I mean, planning 3 meals a day for your kids alone is a tough job. So thinking about how to get past your everyday life that you're already struggling in, if that starts to fall apart, where can you go from there? your relationships and role models. Who do you look up to? Do you have a mentor in your life? Is your boss someone that you get to look up to because they teach you and help you grow? Your organization, you must have a bunch of people in there that really believe in the same thing. Those are like role models for you. If you don't have a role model like that in your life, then you don't have something to look up to or look forward to. And the knowledge of hidden rules. As I shared, we live in a middle class world. So there are a set ground rule that everyone needs to follow. And if you don't know those rules because you grew up in poverty, you will fall behind. And it's really difficult learning the rules unless you have a trusted person in your life that can teach them to you. Does anyone have any questions?
There aren't any questions in the chat, Kelly. We'll let you know.
Sure. Thank you. So we live in a middle class society, as I keep sharing, and the standards have been set. So when someone is born in a home from generational poverty, one of the biggest barriers to success is language. So language, yes, swearing, okay, we get it, right? I grew up in a pool hall. Like I grew up in pool halls all across Canada. So picture a smoky pool hall and two little girls playing pool in the corner and reading some books because, you know, we had schoolwork still to do. What kind of language are we listening to? If you think about, I'll paint a scenario for you. A mom who is extremely stressed out is Children's Aid have called again and they're going to stop by for an unexpected visit. And she's busy trying to clean up. And little Johnny is sitting on the couch and he sees a little bird outside the window. And he says, "Look, a bird." Mom says, "Okay, Johnny, get down from there. You're going to hurt yourself. Can you come help me clean this up?" Done. That was the language that this little boy learned. If we shifted the scenario to a little bit more of a relaxed mom, moms are usually stressed out no matter what, a little more relaxed mom, and Johnny's sitting back there and he says, "Look, Mom, a bird." Mom comes over and says, "Yes, Johnny, look at that. What is the bird doing?" "That's right, flapping his wings." "Oh, did you hear that? What is the bird saying?" "Chirp, chirp." "That's right. What color is the bird?" "The bird is blue." "That's right." "Oh, and look, it flew to the tree. What's on the tree?" Can you hear how the difference is, A, in tone, but language? How many words did not stressed out mom share with Johnny versus stressed out mom? So if we're living in a world where we're continuously looking for resources, that stress level is always going to be higher. And we're really focusing on that immediate need. Our children are starting to develop this sort of quick pace mentality as well. And it's easy to say to someone, meditate or go for a walk when you're stressed out. I think it means much more if you're a friend and you say, want to go for a walk together. There's a difference in creating a friendship out of this and helping someone with their language barriers, let alone figuring out how to de-stress. We look at the registers of language as a big deal as well. So these are the registers. Frozen is very uniformed, like a police officer reading rights. Consultative is conversations through email. Often you can't hear the tone, it's very direct. And sometimes direct feels like you have an insecure, like I've done something wrong. I don't know if you've ever misread an email from a colleague and you're, what did she mean by that? Or what did they mean by that? Formal is standard, it's professional. Paperwork jargon. When someone hands me paperwork, all that black and white, my brain goes into a tizzy. I do not understand. And it might be the most basic language on there, but it's this big, long piece of paper with all this black and white writing. What I need from you in that moment is to Kelly it down. Have a conversation with me to make me not feel silly for saying, what does that word mean? And what does that word mean? Is there a way that we can change our formal professional paperwork to adapt to the needs of whoever's using that paperwork? Intimate is more secretive jokes, expressing vulnerability. Oftentimes when I'm standing in front of hundreds of people sharing my story, that's an intimate conversation. I'm sharing something very exposing about my life. Casual is very comfortable, texting, friendships, more relaxed. Think of it as jeans and t-shirts. I'm a jeans and t-shirts kind of gal. So, I tend to talk in the casual form, but I also code switch. And code switching is adapting to the language around me so that I know that I'm being professional. Oftentimes the foot comes in the mouth, but I manage to resurface and bring it all back around.
Quick question, Kelly.
Sure.
When it comes to the 11 resources, is that based on any specific research? Someone is saying that it's extremely eye-opening and they're already learning so much. And just so you know, with the people that I can see with their cameras on, I'm seeing lots of head nods. People are really, really enjoying what
Okay.
you're
Okay.
saying.
Good, good, good. So the 11 reasons, I think I shared with you, it's from AHA Process. So Ruby Payne and Phil Duvall are the developers of AHA Process, and they worked in the trenches, if you will. Like they went and they were walking the streets of the cities that they were living in and figuring out sort of a framework and concept of these ideas. And they noticed that the 11 resources is definitely a key core component to an individual's success. So they did a lot of surveys, they did a lot of case studies, and it's really incredible work. So Ruby Payne and Phil Duvall. And again, if you ever get a chance to go to a Bridges, this is some of the stuff that I do talk about, but I go into a lot more detail, and I use personalized stories of individuals struggling through these types of situations. Does that help? I hope that helped. So patterns of discourse. So oftentimes if you talk to a little person, like, I would say 8 and under, if something dramatic happens to their life, they talk in discourse. That casual pattern is very, Mom, so if you were to say, why do you have grass on your knees? What were you up to out in the backyard? I saw a bunny, and the bunny hopped all the way over here, and then I was running and there was a twig and I picked it up and I pulled it out and there was a leaf on the twig, and then the leaf fluttered away, and I noticed a bug was on it. Are we getting to those grassy knees yet? So what's happening is they are so excited about the adventure that they just had in the backyard that they want you to feel that adventure with them. They want your empathy, right? So they're saying, well, that sounds like a great time. Eventually you'll get to those grassy knees. Oftentimes someone in a traumatic experience highlighting all the things somewhat to avoid the actual traumatic experience. So it's harder to get to the key knowledge that you're needing in that moment. So formal, which is, direct, police officers are very formal. Can you tell me what that person was wearing? How tall were they, right? Like they want that formal, no ma'am, I didn't ask that. I need to know what they were wearing, right? So I sometimes get excited and talk casual too. So a way to pause that pattern is called bracketing. So if you had an appointment with someone and they came in, and of course in crisis, and they're saying, oh my gosh, like I'm going to get kicked out of my house tomorrow. This is what's happening in my life. I don't know where my kids are going to go. And there's this one appointment that I have to get to. It's all the way across town and I don't know what's happening. You can pause them and say, so we only have, whatever, like 30 minutes. We booked our time for 30 minutes. What is something that we could work on together in 30 minutes to help improve your situation? And it pauses that individual to say, right, my situation is this big, but you can only give me this much right now, and this might lead to fixing this big thing. So pausing, they're also learning a new sort of way to contribute to the conversation by being a little bit more direct, because now it's time efficient. And they're not going to talk in casual format because now they have to understand, I only have 30 minutes with this person and they might save my life. Big pressure on you, but at least you're going to offer them an opportunity to share and disclose resources that may advance their situation. So when an individual comes in and begins speaking in a pattern of discourse, bracketing offers a solution to pause and redirect the conversation to assist the original need. So tyranny of the moment is defined as crisis after crisis after crisis. So we were talking about those resources, right? And if we're lacking in resources, we're going to continually have another crisis after crisis. And the more times that you experience crisis, your life is just in such chaos and your anxiety is elevated and fear and anger and all the emotions start dysregulating because you're in a heightened moment all the time. And it actually takes its toll on your body. And so as we talked about those resources, this is one way. When you're dealing with crisis after crisis and you can't see the way out, it's really hard to focus on solving the situation for the future. Oftentimes people will in poverty or in instability will only focus on the now. They can't see tomorrow. So if you've offered them an appointment 2 weeks from now, they may say yes because they don't want to lose that spot, but they may not show up either because something else may have happened in their life. And so it's really hard. We're trying so hard to figure out how to navigate. Accountability is a big conversation, right? Oftentimes we think, well, they should be accountable for their time. That's right. But also they're going through a lot. So how can we be flexible and give grace in that moment? So we think of things like, how am I going to get through this? My addiction is getting out of control and I can't afford the treatment, but knowing that I want the treatment because I know that might change my life. I can't afford my rent and my hydro and eat at the same time. I have to leave my children home alone, often more than I should, to go to work. What if I lose my job because I have to go to family court again? I keep missing work because of my health. Where do I go to get help? So some of these were actually my situation. When I became a single parent, I was working 3 jobs and I didn't want to create an unstable life for my child. So I worked in a bar until 3 or 4 in the morning. And 1 or 2 times a month, I had to leave her home alone. She had a phone and my neighbor was close by just in case anything happened, and they were safe. They were a safe person, but I had no other options. I had no other way to pay these bills and make sure that we had a roof over our head. And my biggest fear every single time was, what if Children's Aid finds out? Because they're going to put me through the ringer. And she was the only reason why I was getting up and living every day. She was my reason. And then she developed cancer at 9. And I was told that the cancer was onset due to stress. It was called secondary HLH, and it's stress induced. So I would get into the science of things with you all, but we all have mono titers in our body. And mono, if everyone's familiar with mono, it creates a level of your immune system shutting completely down. And stress is the biggest elevator of that. And so I didn't realize that me working so much was creating so much stress on my child. So I lived with that guilt, like constantly. At the time, I was making the choices that I thought were best, but I didn't see the future choices that were being made. And so these are things that people go through on a daily basis. They're thinking they're making the right choice because that's the only choice present, right? Just as a update, my daughter is 6 years cancer free now. She's 22, living in the city, doing very well. I always forget. Some people are like, "Oh, what happened?" And I have an 11-year-old, and she's as feisty as ever. Everything's good in our house. So scarcity mindset is the hyper focus on the lack of resources in one's life that limits them from moving forward and affects their everyday choices. So I just shared that. I was so scared that we were going to lose our house that I was focused on making sure I had an income, and it didn't matter at what cost. And that was affecting choices that I had to make. Scarcity mindset is not something that you do on purpose. It's the background noise your brain makes when you can't get what you need, want, or need. So living in that tyranny will create scarcity mindset. What does it do for your health, your mental health? It limits your brain function and the ability to make sound choices to meet futuristic needs to meet needs in a futuristic capacity. So the choice you're making now may affect what's going to happen later. And we think, well, but we have this is the moment, right? We don't have another option. We have to take what's given to us in this moment. It's impulse control becomes much harder. Think about theft. Impulse control, right? We know that you're going to go to jail if you get caught stealing things, but I have a need so bad and desperate right now, I'm going to steal. It's my only option. I can't think of anything else. Out of that desperation, that's scarcity mindset. Once you have an established relationship with an individual, you can begin to shift their perception to abundance by stepping in and engaging in the things that can help see that potential. So I think of those stories. So I just mentioned the theft thing, and I think of those stories about the convenience store owner, and he witnesses a young boy taking something, and he goes over to that young boy and has the conversation, and he says, "What made you do that?" And the little boy would say, "Well, my mom doesn't have money and we need some food. I'm sorry." And of course they're going to feel bad depending on the situation. If the store owner came over in aggression, the boy would be defensive, right? If the store owner came over and was curious about it, you may have developed a situation where you could have corrected that impulse and offered an opportunity for next time. What could we change for next time? I'm not saying this happens all the time, or it's going to happen every, to every person. But there's opportunities if us ourselves can pause for that moment and say, out of curiosity, what's going on in your world that this was your option? So theory of change is something that we talk about in Getting Ahead. So Getting Ahead is that 12 to 15 week workshop where you come in your tyranny of the moments and you realize, wow, there are others just like me. And you start developing opportunities to look for new potential in your life. And each week we talk about choices, we talk about the chaos we're living in, we talk about how powerful our voices are in the lived experience world and what we could do to change our community. We even investigate the lack of resources in the community and offer an opportunity to speak to council members to say, we have ideas, listen, let's share some ideas and see if we can implement some of these things to create a better, more equitable community for everyone. So theory of the change is actually the start of that. So we're stuck in that tyranny of the moment, that concrete thinking. If we were to think, I'm never going to be able to pay this bill. It's just way too high. Every single month, you're always going to be late on that bill. And it's creating stress and it's going to be cut off. And I could have fixed it, but I just didn't know how. And I just deal with this every single month. So if we were to move into abstract thinking, we need someone to help us with that. So this individual is going to come and sit beside us and detach themselves. They're detached already. They're going to help us detach from that every month problem that we're having because we think in the concrete. They're going to detach and they're going to say, how about we look at different options? And so in doing that, we're getting a bit of education and we're researching some new options. We get to analyze what's not working in a more calm way. We can think objectively to it, and we have new ideas to support it. And then there's a new plan in place. Do you think you can do that though in the middle of the month when you know that bill's coming? No, because your brain is in such chaos, and we call that the red brain. And when red brain is happening, everything shuts down and your brain you will not learn anything. The neurons in your brain are closing off because this is what you know. This is what you do every single month. When we can learn something new, more neurons start forming because we're in a calmer state. And so that new way of thinking will be your new way of thinking if you keep repeating that new way of thinking. So over time, if you had a friend who kept saying, hey, how's everything going with the budget this month? Are you on board? Do we need to tweak anything? If you had that close friend, that type of relationship, you would be able to help change their neurons. Pretty cool that you can be a part of science with your friend. So the hidden rules to instability or poverty, the driving force is survival. It's all about survival. My everyday matters. I need to get through this one day. Your relationships are the key core to how you're going to get through this situation in your life. That is why I love circles so much, because I formed these amazing relationships with people that were outside my world, and I look forward to seeing them, and I hold them very close to me. So relationships are very strong. If you had someone that was watching your child all the time and you didn't, maybe they were really rude or, but they played with your kids so well and they made the best cookies ever, you're holding on to that relationship because A, they're all about your survival, and B, like you have someone in your life that you can at least look on when you need help, right? We often say, if you have a car and it breaks down, in poverty, you call Uncle Ray, not CAA, because you can't afford CAA, right? Entertainment is usually free. If we can sit on our front porch and have a coffee or a beer or just laugh about silly things, that's entertainment. For money, it's to be used or spent. We have it right now, we have to use it up. Oftentimes we hear of people complaining about an individual who doesn't have a lot of money and they're spending it on cigarettes. Yes, they're spending it on cigarettes because that's what's getting them through their life. We know that that's a big source of income that's not going to something that we may think is not useful, but we also have our own vices that we don't get judged on, or maybe we do, right? So money is such a sensitive subject, but if you are in poverty or in instability, you use it now because you don't know when you're going to get it next. Time is present. The present is most important. Your decisions are based on the feelings and survival right now. We were talking about that impulse control. If you live in poverty, you're always going to think there's never going to be enough. I have to get what I need right now. Personality is for entertainment, sense of humor, and highly valued. Oftentimes, I think I'm pretty funny. My friends say I'm pretty funny. That's my personality. And I try to tone it down when I'm at really professional engagements. I do recall meeting, a report. I had to report to someone monthly. And thankfully, I just kept to my personality and we got through the reporting every month. Social emphasis is inclusion of people they like. If you go to a party, there's eyes everywhere. If you're in a party at a community party in the neighborhood, everybody's looking out for everybody. Oh, no, I don't like them. No, do you know why? And then there's the gossip happening and then the cycles start forming. It's very different if you went to a middle class party, because in a middle class party, you'd be talking about your achievements and, who got that promotion and who went to school and, oh, I haven't heard from them in so long, right? Education is valued and revered as an abstract, but not as reality. It's a pipe dream for most to think about they're going to school. So I'm really excited because for me and my family, I was the first Jones female born into our family, but I was also the very first Jones to go to college because even though I grew up in pool halls, I knew the world was bigger than me and I loved books and I loved applying what I learned with those books. I was building model cars. I can tile floors. I can change a gas tank from a Nissan. I loved learning. And so I knew that education for me was really big. And so I developed the means for myself to get to college. But my dad had no clue how to help me through that. I feel like I'm talking really fast, but I get really excited about this stuff. So for the hidden rules to stability or middle class, the driving force is work or achievement. Money is to be managed. Time is for future. Its most important decisions are based against future ramifications. So thinking about if I spend the money on something now, I want to make sure it's good quality and it's going to last, right? Whereas if you're in poverty, you only have so much money. Obviously, we're shopping in thrift stores and we're thinking about right now that survival need, and it might break down faster, but we had to get to wherever we need to go right now. That's why we see in houses sometimes lots of piles of buildup of broken down things. It's because they couldn't afford the thing that would last a really long time. And now they can't afford to take the broken stuff and get it fixed or bring it to the dump, right? Because that still costs money. That seems to be a big question. How come you see so many houses with all of the stuff outside of them? It makes it look ratty. It makes it look dirty. It's not intentional and it gets overwhelming. If you've ever had a circumstance happen to you where you've had to clean up a big mess like that and you're the only person that's able to do that and you don't really have a lot of friends that are offering to support that, it's overwhelming. And so therefore it's just going to sit there. So what could we do to change that? Could we get a community dump bin and say, hey gang, for 1 week, this is going to be on this property. Please feel free to use it. We had that happen at our housing units and everybody was excited because we had all this broken down furniture and all these things. We just didn't have the means to get rid of them or fix them. Sorry, I think I went off on a bunny trail. That's my casual discourse. Personality is for acquisition and ability. Achievements are highly valued in middle class. Social emphasis is on self-governance and self-sufficiency. Education is crucial for climbing the success ladder and making money. So why does Circles work? So Circles Muskoka, or Circles Canada, or Circles USA is where it actually originated from, is a program where it invites members of the community who are living in stable lives, who want to volunteer their time and have taken the bridges out of poverty to have a different understanding of poverty and feel like they understand the concept of equal. And we take a graduate from Getting Ahead and they're considered now a leader. They're going to lead their new life. And we match them with this volunteer, the ally, and they form a friendship that develops reciprocity. And in this reciprocity, both parties are learning. And it is so wonderful to watch this community. And both of them begin to feel passionate about the community around them. And they invest in, you need to come to circles and volunteer your time. I have the best time because, and I've learned so much because, and then the leader is saying, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this is what I needed in my life. This is what's happening for me. So each week we meet, we have a dinner, and over the dinner conversations alone, you think about a family dinner that you haven't seen your long lost uncle for a really long time. That's happening every single week at this dinner table because we shift everybody. We make people sit with other people during that dinner conversation. And then when dinner's over, the kids go off into their own program, and the adults all learn with a guest that may talk about budgeting. They may talk about housing. They may talk about, different barriers that are standing in the way. We've even come up with big view concepts to help create systemic change. One of them is our podcast that we formed, and that was starting to be listened to by municipality, and they're understanding, okay, this housing, we need to develop housing in a different format. Now we have the community land trust happening, and now we have Habitat joining circles and becoming ad hoc allies because they're understanding that housing is a huge need for an individual to succeed. So it's that just formed from a friendship, literally talking like, just have a cup of coffee. And that's what the allies are feeling. I really just have a cup of coffee with them, and it's life-changing. It's interesting. Trust is built over time. So trust is a very big concept for individuals in poverty. If you have an agenda coming into this conversation, I will know because my gut will tell me, and I can read your body language faster than you can even come across that parking lot. And I may be closed off to this conversation depending on what's happening here. Your tone of voice. I mean, sometimes we can't help our tone, it's who we are, but your tone of voice and how you're receiving things may hinder that conversation. Circles works because we're all excited to be there. We all love, first of all, we love the meals because they're incredible, but we all love meeting each week and what's going to be happening today. People feel heard and validated for their lived experience. We have sharing sessions where even the allies have been touched by poverty in their life or have been in circumstances where they've just wanted to give back, and this is their capacity, and they're developing these family-like relationships. So currently, right now, I'm a graduate 4 years ago from Circles North Muskoka, and I'm sitting in my ally's house. I'm cat sitting for her, and I live in her house for 3 months. And she watches my daughter every single Wednesday while I run circles. We have formed a family relationship. And I didn't realize that's what I needed in my life to keep going. It levels out the economic structure. So just because I don't have what you have doesn't make me any less than. Everybody lives by that in our circles program. And friendships of mutual respect. We are all friends. And just because we get matched does not mean I can't call one of the other allies up or one of the other leaders up. We've developed a sort of family. It was really rewarding to have Kelsey and Tally and Haley come to our circles closing ceremony because we've worked so hard this past year. You know, everybody's been affected by the pandemic, and I know the monthly reports when I'm handing in, they're all about simple things, but those simple things are big things for these leaders who have been struggling so hard. And I was sharing that we often think success is someone who goes and gets that job and now they've got the car and they've got the house and they look like they've got life together. But sometimes success is being able to pick up a phone and call someone because that could have been a very traumatic experience for them. Rejection is a huge thing, or, the abuse that they may have endured that prevented them from making phone calls. So that little small step is a big step to bigger things. So when we break all this down in our conversations with one another, being very present with the person that you're standing to. We have one of our allies, all of the allies are really amazing, but one of our allies has this ability to her life. She volunteers in multiple organizations, but when she is in front of you, first of all, she gives you the best hugs. Oh my, they're like a Nana melt hug, right? But she gives you a hug and she's there. And her life is on fire and there's things happening around us. And she is so engaged with you that you feel like you are the most important person in the world to her. That is a model to try and live by, because I walk away from those conversations every single time feeling like, wow, I feel heard. This is amazing. And now I have new things to do. I'm so excited about my next steps. Relationship building. So the initiation, what is your intention for this interaction? Trust, you need to earn the trust. If you have an agenda, then it won't work unless you're upfront about it. So I do recall Sharon coming in. That was so exciting. Sharon had given us a little guideline of the things that she was hoping to have in this conversation. The leaders were prepared for it, and they were very open to having a conversation with her. Very open. It was really rewarding. But had Sharon come in and just said, oh, I just want to hang out, and then started investigating and asking questions, the leaders probably would not have been so forward, because there would have been like, hey, you had something up your sleeve here. You wanted information from us, right? So just being intentional about what you're up to. Deposits and withdrawals in the conversation that may hinder or help the interaction. A deposit is appreciating who that person is in the moment, and a withdrawal is making a comment about who they are. You know, oh, you're such a jerk. Let's go for it. You're such a jerk. Why would you be like that? Whoa, where did that come from? That's not going to help this conversation at all. Treat it like a coffee with a friend and no hidden agenda. Bonding takes time. What are some commonalities that you can connect with? And let's work together to create change. Listening to understand. So this is my favorite. I started using this with my daughter. Do you need me to just listen? Do you need me to fix it? Or do you want my advice? How hard is it when someone comes to you with a situation and you just want to fix it? Because that's we want everyone to succeed, but they didn't come to us with that in mind. There's a reason, and we need to pause and maybe read their body language a little bit and offer these questions and see what happens. Try implementing them into your own conversations. I started doing it with my 11-year-old. She's 11 now. And she's now pausing with me. She's not so feisty. And I'll say, do you need me to just listen to you right now? It sounds like you had a hard day. Did you want me to fix that problem, or do you have it? And do you want mom's advice or not? Like, even my 22-year-old, I use it on her, and it's changed the dynamic in our relationship because I'm a mom. I want to fix it, right? That's it. We did it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here for another 7 minutes. Or email. You can email me anytime, honestly. My email box does not get as full as everyone thinks, and I do love having these conversations. So if you ever had any other conversations that you wanted me to share, and I think we were talking about this with Sharon, but we've developed a way to create the bridges out of poverty in a 4-hour capacity that I can come to you if you have 15 or more people, or we could do it on Zoom, whatever that looks like. And we usually ask for a small donation, but I'm sure we could figure things out.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Kelly. We really, really appreciate this. We are so blessed to have you with us today.